from your trusted local news source with your first alert forecast. KCRG-TV9 News at 10 starts now.
One day after a line of destructive storms tore through eastern Iowa, communities across the area are in the process of what will likely be a long recovery from yesterday's tornado outbreak. Today, KCRG-TV9's Mollie Swayne met with victims in Manchester as they start to clean up.
We've, lost a piece of tin here or there off the buildings, but nothing like this.
Kenneth Willie said he's been in his home a mile or two south of Manchester since 1988, but Friday's storm was a milestone.
It's the first one we've had this much damage.
He wasn't just talking about the sideways tree in his yard.
Our greenhouse, it's completely destroyed. More than likely, the machine shed, we're not going to be able to save that, and our two-stall garage over here, the sides are blowed out, so it's going to have to come down also.
And Willie wasn't the only one facing repair work.
This building is gone. Over here, we got part of the barn gone. You can actually look in there, you can see staves. There was a silo. The silo came down, took the barn.
Nearby, Josh Wendling said his parents' farm sustained hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage.
I mean, we're in shock yet. We're still trying to process everything that happened.
Cleanup took place across the entire area south of town. Alongside Highway 13 Saturday morning, crews repaired utility poles snapped by the storm and rehung power lines. The storm and its destruction left some in Delaware County worried and shaken.
I'm in better shape than my wife. She just totally lost it last night. So, of course, all the kids are calling, wanting to know if anything they can do, and she tried to tell them how everything was looking, and it just, that choke in the throat, I knew that it was bothering her.
But there's also a lot of gratitude because according to Acting Chief for the Manchester Fire Department, Randy Rattenborg, the town as a whole was lucky.
The people that got damaged don't think we're lucky, but overall, in general, nobody got hurt. We could have had it worse, and I'm assuming other people did, so we're lucky.
In Manchester, Mollie Swayne, KCRG-TV9 News.
Governor Reynolds did issue a disaster proclamation for 12 counties in Iowa, opening up state funds for storm recovery. Most of those are in the TV9 viewing area: Cedar, Delaware, Dubuque, Grundy, Johnson, Keokuk, Lynn, and Washington counties. Johnson County Emergency Management says 2 tornadoes touched down as we take a look at a calmer Solon city cam tonight. And here is that exact same street just last night, just after 5 o'clock yesterday. Our city cam, you can see, witnessed the storm ripping the roof off of one building in town. The Solon City Administrator says its building inspector was out evaluating damage from last night. People who are impacted can take their debris to the city maintenance building, and public works crews will start curb pickup of storm debris starting on Monday. Hills south of Iowa City had some damage of its own. Homes missing siding and parts of roofs. With widespread damage in that area, Johnson County Emergency Management is asking people to self-report. That's how people can get assistance from the state. A link to report your damage is up right now on KCRG.com.
On first glance, you're overwhelmed.
People in Keota are cleaning up what's left of several homes this weekend after being impacted by Friday's storms. Today, the Quad Cities National Weather Service says preliminary readings indicate an EF4 tornado tracked from Wapello to Johnson County, causing damage to a farmstead north of Keota. Washington County officials say 19 homes were destroyed. A viewer sent us this video of a massive tornado near Keota in Keokuk County. KCRG-TV9's Brian Tabick was in Keota today and spoke to a homeowner there impacted by the storms.
All that's left of Craig Hansen's Keokuk County home are a few piles of debris.
This is one of them good old-fashioned 2-story, 4 bedrooms upstairs, bathroom downstairs farmhouse. Been here since 1919, I think it was, and all of that's gone.
Debris that was once his family's belongings.
What you do when you get a situation like this is you just dig the basement out, push the wood in, burn it, and then you fill it back in with sand and dirt and things like that.
According to the Washington County Emergency Management Agency, Hansen's home was one of 19 that were destroyed by what the National Weather Service says was an EF4 tornado. No one was killed during the storm. One person was injured.
You're going to see houses that are not houses anymore. I mean, they're just destroyed. They were blown off their foundations.
Family and friends were out in force on Saturday, but Chief Conrad says it's going to take weeks before things start to look normal.
Southwest. As far as debris cleanup, that's going to be an ongoing process. It's probably going to take a week or two, honestly, that guys are going to be out in their fields before planting season, trying to get the siding and the tin and the roofs and stuff.
Hansen hopes that once the cleanup process is over, they too can start over.
Probably later this summer we'll think about trying to put a new home on it.
In Keokuk County, Brian Tabick, KCRG-TV9 News.
That was 19 homes destroyed in Keokuk County. We'll go now to meteorologist Thompson for a check of your first alert forecast.
Let's talk a little bit more about that tornado that Brian reported on and that did so much damage. The National Weather Service has been out surveying all the tornado tracks, or at least a handful of them today. And they do have some information on the one that tracked from even in far northern Wapello County all the way to Johnson County. It has a preliminary rating of an EF4, which is near the top end of that scale. It only goes to EF5. Estimated maximum winds of about 170 miles per hour and a maximum width of about 600 yards. The damage that they used to determine that EF4 rating was a home near the Kyoto area that was swept off of its foundation. That is very significant damage. EF4 is considered a violent tornado, and based on the video that we saw yesterday of it and the reporting we've had on the damage it caused, that is perfectly reasonable. The National Weather Service will be reporting more on additional tornadoes, has more places to check over the next couple of days, and we'll bring that to you when we have it. Temperatures are in the 30s at this hour. Winds are very, very light. After a windy start to the day, we've headed toward a much calmer night, but we will have another windy one again on Sunday. There are more storms in the forecast, at least as a possibility, as we head toward the early part of next week. Tonight, though, we'll keep it dry, upper 20s to low 30s, with winds remaining fairly light overnight, but again, picking up by the time we get toward tomorrow. We'll take a look at the latest on that storm system heading for us for Tuesday, coming up.
Corey, a line of strong storms hitting the northeast with a confirmed tornado in Delaware, the same system that rolled through the south and Midwest on Friday. ABC's Derricke has more.
A deadly tornado outbreak stretching from the Midwest into the deep south and now the northeast. The latest just tonight in Delaware. This video captured in Bridgeville in Sussex County, where state police say one person died when a home collapsed during the storm. Friday in Sullivan, Indiana, southwest of Indianapolis, homes and businesses destroyed.
By the time I got in there and shut that door, the front window blew out and I just dropped to the floor and crawled under my bed. And then that's when the tornado hit.
The mayor of Sullivan says the city is unrecognizable.
It's devastating. I just see mass devastation. We see that on the national news, whether it's a war in Ukraine or whatever, and that's quite frankly what this looks like, is a war zone.
From above, you can see the path of destruction in Wynne, Arkansas.
You can just hear, all the debris.
And I was afraid that tree was going to fall on us.
At least one EF3 tornado packing winds up to 165 miles per hour confirmed in nearby Little Rock, the governor declaring a state of emergency. West of Chicago in Belvedere, Illinois, a deadly roof collapsed during a heavy metal concert when an EF1 tornado came through. More than 250 people inside, including Luke Nissen and Joe Seek.
It just was pitch black for a second, a big giant boom, and you just smell the dust and everything in the air.
They say when the roof caved, a crowd of 30 to 40 people began trying to lift the debris until first responders arrived.
Nobody knows what to do, it's just a pile of like wood, nails sticking out. What do you do? But you hear these people screaming underneath.
They added prior to the collapse, concert goers received tornado alerts on their phones but did not anticipate danger as they frequently receive them. Derricke, ABC News, New York.
We're less than 24 hours away from seeing the Iowa women's basketball team play in the national championship. Hear from Caitlin Clark on what she thinks sets this game apart and what it means for women's basketball.
Though we're seeing a break from the wind right now, it will return tomorrow and likely stay through the early part of the week as that storm system approaches. We'll take a look at its effects here in eastern Iowa coming up in your first alert forecast. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG-TV9.
Your trusted local news source with Becky Phelps, meteorologist Thompson, and Chelsie Brown with sports. You're watching KCRG-TV9 News at 10. Eastern Iowa is...
The Iowa women's basketball team is looking to make history by winning the team's first ever national championship, and we have just under 24 hours to go. Our TV9 sports team has been covering it all week. Jack Lido joins us from Dallas.
Welcome to Dallas, where we are closing in on National Championship Sunday. There's been star power across the Final Four, and if you love trash talking, well, you're going to love the matchup between Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. The two superstars from Iowa and LSU, respectively, bring a flair to every game they play in. Clark says that's a good thing. That's what the people come to see.
I view, matchups that people get really excited about as a really good thing for this game. I think that's what excites people and gets them to the TV. But when they turn the TV on, they understand it's not an individual game. It wasn't Caitlin versus Leo. We weren't even matched up against each other at all. It's not going to be Caitlin versus Angel. That's not what's going to win a national championship, but that's what gets them excited about watching the game. I think more than anything, people are starting to understand women can play with, excitement and a passion and a fire about themselves. And, that's what's fun. That's what people want to see.
The two most passionate fan bases at Friday's Final Four, for my money, were Iowa and LSU. So this place is going to be a madhouse. Speaking of which, Scott Saville caught up with one Hawkeye fan at the Hawkeye Huddle who has a pretty close connection to the team.
Just a few fans here, and I ran into a really tall one, Joanna Stolke-Mance. You might remember her from On Iowa Live. She's kind of famous for that. You've heard about that, right?
Oh, I have, yes, a couple times.
Now your daughter Hannah's going to play tomorrow night on the big stage as a freshman and probably guarding one of the best players in the country, but she doesn't seem too nervous.
She is not nervous. They have worked all season for this. She's excited at this point. Someone just asked her today, are you nervous? And she said sometimes she'll get a little bit right before they go onto the court.
How crazy is this? She's a freshman and she walks in and plays in the Final Four.
We cannot even describe it. All of my friends, all of my family, I can definitely feel the love. We've got just a ton of support. But we thought that, some of her AAU teams, some of those travels were like really big deals, going to these big cities. It is nothing like this. This is so much bigger and so much more grand. And it's just, it's surreal.
I got to ask you about the Happy Like Hannah t-shirts. I see them everywhere. Yeah. She's pretty popular.
She is pretty popular. I think people are seeing with her interviews and social media stuff that she is just a genuinely happy person. I think she would agree with me if I said, the joy of the Lord is her strength. We have a higher power that we serve, and we're just happy to be here. Happy like Hannah.
I know Caitlin Clark has superstar popularity, but locally, I don't think Hannah Stolke is too far behind. Back to you in the studio.
Now, your first alert forecast with meteorologist Corey Thompson.
It is a fairly quiet night across eastern Iowa and southwest Wisconsin. We're right on the border there in Guttenberg. Temperatures, though, are chilly. They're in the 30s right now. 36 in Cedar Rapids, 34 in Guttenberg. Nothing out of the ordinary, though, for this time of year. And winds are very light. That's a nice change from earlier in the day. If we had this morning's winds with these temperatures, wind chills would be rather chilly. And by tomorrow, we will have winds back. But instead, they'll be from the south, and they'll be pushing warmer air back into the region. You can see the gusts really peak in the early afternoon as indicated by your first alert and this chart, and they get better again by tomorrow evening. They'll at least be lighter by then. As we go through the night, though, we're not expecting much change in our overall weather picture. Skies will remain mostly clear, just a few clouds streaming in from the west by the time we get toward daybreak. Some of those cloudy areas will tend to break up as we go through the day. Southerly winds, again, pretty brisk, but also bringing in warmer air. Brisk usually meant to describe cooler temperatures, but we'll take that as it comes. As we go through the night on Sunday night into early Monday, that's when we could see a few showers develop. Very late Sunday night, more likely during the day on Monday. Scattered light showers possible embedded within some larger areas of clouds. Tonight, we're expecting temperatures to be in the upper 20s to low 30s, mostly clear skies. Look like a pretty good bet there, too. Winds out of the southeast between about 10 to 20. Tomorrow is when things warm up. In fact, everybody looks to get into at least the 60s, with 62 in Prairie du Chien, 67 in Iowa City, 69 in Mount Pleasant, maybe even a 70 down in Oskaloosa with pretty gusty southwest winds. The next storm system is on the way for early next week. It's likely to develop in either eastern Colorado or western Kansas and then shift to the northeast from there. Where it goes, we'll be bringing a warm front with it. And as we get into the area along and south of that warm front rather, that's the area that could see some pretty decent storm development during the day on Tuesday. Additional storms could develop along this cold front as it pushes to the east during the evening and overnight hours on Tuesday, too. A little bit of detail yet to be worked out in the storm system, but for now, the Storm Prediction Center has a broad area included in a relatively higher risk of severe storms, much like we saw in the days leading up to Friday. Now, the difference between this storm and Friday, though, are some of the details. That one looked like a bit more of a slam dunk several days away in terms of producing severe weather. This one, we've got the favorable ingredients, we've got the seasonally strong storm system, but the location is still a little bit in question. That warm front is going to be a pretty key player, and whether or not there's a cap on the atmosphere. So what we need you to do at this point is to just stick with us. Check back for additional updates tomorrow morning, Sunday night, Monday morning. We'll keep you up to date as far as we know it. We may actually step away toward cooler temperatures for a little bit as we head toward the second week of April. That's the outlook from the Climate Prediction Center for now. So it's Tuesday, the day that we're watching at this point, as temperatures warm. However, if you're north of the warm front on Tuesday, your temperatures may only be in the 40s. So that's why we're saying that's a key player, that big contrast in temperatures right along that boundary. We'll, of course, pin that down as we get closer, and we will let you know when we know it.
Thanks, Corey.
Yep.
Coming up, dozens of people attended a panel earlier today discussing issues facing the LGBTQ community in Iowa. Hear how a transgender teacher says some new laws could be impacting students' mental health. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG-TV9. A discussion today in Cedar Rapids focused on issues facing the LGBTQ community in Iowa. The nonprofit Cedar Rapids Pride hosted the event. Some of the panelists included a parent of a non-binary child, a civil rights law attorney, and a board member who is transgender. They spoke about laws affecting the LGBTQ community, including the statewide bathroom policy in schools. It requires anyone in an Iowa school to use the bathroom that aligns with their biological sex, not their gender identity. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds signed that bill into law earlier this month, as well as one banning gender-affirming care for minors. Erin Kirkpatrick is a transgender teacher at Prairie Point Middle School in Cedar Rapids and was on the panel today. They say one bill is enough to make transgender people feel unwelcome in Iowa and impact their mental health.
We know that when we treat trans kids like they belong and like it's no big deal, that suicidality that they suffer from disappears, right? So when they say we don't want to treat trans kids the way that medical professionals want to treat trans kids, what they're really saying is we want trans kids to be dead. We would rather they be dead than trans.
They say they know many transgender people making plans to leave the state because of bills in the legislature. Coming up next, we'll check back in with our sports team in Dallas as the Hawkeyes get ready to face off against LSU tomorrow in the national championship. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG-TV9.
Now, KCRG-TV9 Sports with Chelsie Brown.
Welcome back to Dallas. Iowa head coach Lisa Bluder said the bigger the stage, the more fun it is for Iowa's Caitlin Clark. And after back-to-back 40-point games, LSU is going to have their hands full stopping the National Player of the Year.
If you were an opposing coach game planning to stop Caitlin Clark, what would you do?
Pray. Iowa head coach Lisa Bluder may have said it best with her one-liner. However, LSU head coach Kim Mulkey saw Iowa's Caitlin Clark play in person for the first time against South Carolina, and she said she couldn't take her eyes off her.
I don't like to use the word never, but I don't know that I've ever seen a player that can do what Caitlin does. She's going to get her points. That girl's phenomenal shooting the ball. But the most impressive thing to me, now that you're talking to an old point guard, is she makes everybody around her better.
Clark became the sixth player in D1 women's basketball to score 1,000 points and the first in NCAA tournament history to register back-to-back 40-point games.
Do you really have a game plan for Caitlin? Like, you just have to contain her and, try to make every shot contested. You don't want to give her those easy looks because she is a great player. She can create. She's just a three-level scorer, man. It's going to be hard to stop her.
Never seen a player like Caitlin Clark in college basketball ever in my life. You got to make it a different type of game. You got to make it a mental game and try to make her uncomfortable, which is hard to do to such a great player. She's always locked in mentally.
Iowa and LSU haven't played each other this season, but the Hawkeyes are familiar with two of the Tigers players who played in the Big Ten.
Angel Reese is a fabulous basketball player, and obviously we coached against her when she was at Maryland. We coached against Poole when she was at Ohio State. Angel just seems to be playing a little bit more free at LSU. I mean, averaging 23 points a game. She shoots the ball incredibly well, but 6.5 offensive rebounds. I mean, we're going against another rebounding monster team.
They're a great team. I mean, luckily, me and Katir have played them before in the Big Ten, so I know what Caitlin brings to the table for sure. But just like I said, that third and fourth player, making sure that they don't go off and get their 20 points, I think that's just going to be the difference.
With a national audience and millions of eyes on Clark and the Hawkeyes, the Iowa native is one win away from bringing her home state their first ever national title.
Something I always talk about with our sports psychologist is visualize greatness. See yourself, hitting game-winning shots, see yourself hoisting a trophy, because why can't that be you? Because it can.
It was her dream to take us to something that we haven't done in a long, long time, and beyond that. I mean, and when one kid dreams it and everybody else is willing to jump on that train, it's amazing what can happen.
And she's not going to let anything impact their destiny.
It's really easy to wake up for a national championship. Being tired is not going to be an issue with me. Having bruises is not going to be an issue. Being sore is not going to be an issue for anybody on our team.
Iowa and LSU will play for the national title Sunday at 2:30, and you can watch the game right here on KCRG. Reporting in Dallas, I'm Chelsie Brown for KCRG-TV9 Sports.
Thank you, Chelsie. And looking ahead to Monday, tune in to a special edition of On Iowa Live. On KCRG 9.2, you can join Scott, Chelsie, and Jack live from Dallas on the Hawkeye women's basketball team's historic run for a national championship. Hear from Coach Bluder, Caitlin Clark, and more players, coaches, and fans on the team's inspirational run. Again, Monday night at 6:30, only on KCRG 9.2, hopefully celebrating a national championship win.
That'd be the best outcome for sure.
Absolutely. And look at our final forecast.
Well, we have a warmer outcome for our forecast tomorrow. Temperatures will be rising from the 30s in the morning back to the 60s by the afternoon all across eastern Iowa. It'll be windy though, so you do have to take that into account as you're headed out and about. A little bit less windy on Monday, a little cooler too, as we'll have clouds and a few showers around in some cases. Tuesday, though, is the day to watch for the potential for some more showers and storms. There could be an initial round in the afternoon, maybe a little bit later on Tuesday evening and night too. We'll be watching closely and providing you updates between now and then.
Thanks, Corey. And thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.